Hi, guys. Welcome to the first episode of the Holistic Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Maitri Balmurugan. I'm the founder and CEO of Evenfall Cosmetics. Evenfall isn't just another skincare brand created with aesthetic packaging. It is a holistic wellness brand curated to provide you wellness in all the four aspects of your life: physical, mental, social, and spiritual. Now, let me set the scene for our guest today. She's a multifaceted individual who wears many hats. She is a certified yoga instructor, a counselor, a sound and energy healer, an Akashic record and oracle card reader, a numerologist, Kathak dancer, and an MBA holder. No, I did not describe five different people. I described one person. So please welcome Taavishii Sachdeva. Taavishii, I'm so glad that you took out the time to do this, and I'm really honored to have you as our first guest today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here as well. And I think it's amazing that, you're doing what you're doing with that holistic mindset. So I think that's amazing. And I would love to be here and support you. So here I am.
Thank you so much. So, I want to start off by asking you what, according to you, is the true meaning of the term holistic wellness?
Yeah, so even my Instagram, it says holistic wellness with Taavishii. So, and I know it's kind of like a generic term, right? Holistic,
Yes.
but I felt that it communicates more than what any other fancy word could, right? So for me, holistic literally means something that encompasses the whole, right? So, like you said, the four aspects:
Yes.
your physical, your mental. I typically say emotional and spiritual, but I
Yes.
kind of like that you said social because,
Yes.
social is also very much part of what the human being is about. So, yeah, maybe there's five aspects, right? Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and social. So, I think holistic to me means something that helps you feel whole, or at least a certain degree of whole or at peace in all of these different areas. I do understand that sometimes you may feel very good about your spiritual life, but not so much about, say, your career or your work life, right?
True.
Or it may be the other way around. So when I say holistic, what I'm saying is there should be a certain degree of wholesomeness or contentment in all the aspects, is to me holistic.
Wow, that was a lovely answer. Now, I want to ask you, you'd mentioned that emotional well-being. So, could you please help us understand the difference between emotional and mental well-being?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I can see how many people would. They are correlated. They are
Hmm.
definitely correlated, but there is a difference, and I'll tell you what.
Hmm.
In fact, this is something that I have gone through in my own life, mentally, and it's very interesting. People who are mentally sharp and strong sometimes will actually end up having more emotional problems. And that is because the world doesn't exactly work according to logic, right? Everyone, for example, it would be great if everyone is nice, if everyone is loving to each
True.
other, right?
True.
It truly would be for every person, but that's not how it works because there's selfishness, there's ego, there's fears, there's insecurities. So a lot of times people, in fact, just recently, I'd like to give this example. Just recently, I had a client. I also do Akashic record readings, as you mentioned. So I had a client who was talking about how she's struggling with her relationships. And she's very intelligent, very smart. She wants to sort of solve everyone's problem. But people don't always want their problem solved, right? Sometimes they just want to be heard. Sometimes all they want is compassion. So people with sharp minds and sharp intellects, what tends to happen is they can sort of see what needs to be done. And sometimes things are almost black and white for them. But emotions aren't about that, right? Emotions are usually a spectrum, and it's about
Yes.
regulating that
Yes.
spectrum.
Yes.
So that's how emotional health is different from mental health, because you could be very sharp, you could be very smart, you could know exactly what needs to be done, but maybe that's not possible, or maybe that's not what you're getting from the other side. So now emotionally, you're thrown off and you're like, wait, what is going on? You're distressed. How do you now handle that distress? Because everything is not going to be perfect, everything's not going to be logical, rational. So that's how the two are different, in my
Wow.
opinion, in my
That was
humble
a
opinion.
that was a very, very insightful answer. Like you'd mentioned, the world is not just binary, it's not just zeros and ones or black and white. So thank you for
Right.
letting us know that our emotional health is a spectrum and it's not black and white. I think many of us really needed to hear that, me included. So now I
Yeah,
want,
all of us,
yeah,
all of us. Yeah.
yes. Now I would want to flow into our third question, which is
Mhm.
how could how does stress affect our ability to attain a state of optimal mind-body connection?
Um, well, before I sort of give the answer to that, I want to talk a little bit about the term optimal mind-body connection, right?
Hmm. Yes.
Sometimes what can happen is in this chase or desire of wanting to achieve the optimal mind-body connection, the optimal mind-body connection becomes a source of stress. Because you're like, oh my God, am I at the optimal mind body connection? Should I be doing more? Should I be doing less? Is this
Yeah.
optimal? Is this not? So sometimes that becomes a source of stress.
Yeah.
So I would almost if it were me, I would want to use, I would say, how do you do your best at any point, right? Because at some points in your life, stress will be higher. At some other points, it will be lower. So your optimal may also change from time to time. I think it's important to be mindful of that, because you may not always be at your A game, and you cannot be, and you shouldn't expect yourself to be. I think it's important to see what is going on in your life, what resources you have, and just do your best, right? So from that perspective, yes, optimal, but the optimal keeps changing. We should keep that in mind. It should not be a hard and fixed thing, because then that becomes a source of stress, right? Like
Yes.
every day I have to do these many hours of yoga, these many hours of pranayama, these many hours of meditation. Well, what if you have exams or guests, or there's a family emergency? Then you not doing the optimal becomes a source of stress. No, that's not how it should work, right? So that's number one. Don't make that the stressor. But of course, there's stressors, right? There's stressors in life. There's health things that happen. There's accidents. There's people who may not behave exactly how we'd want them to, and things like that. So I like to like think of this analogy that we're like, it's like you're sailing in a boat
Okay.
on an ocean or
Okay.
in a sea,
Okay.
and the waves are like the stressors, right? So
Uh,
when the waves are calmer, it's easier to navigate and sail.
wow.
When the waves are turbulent, you have to really hold on to the oars and really sort of be there and make
Yeah.
sure that you're making the right decisions at the
Yeah.
right times, right? You may not have the leisure of just relaxing back when the waves are turbulent. So I feel like stress is like that. The more stress there is in your life, the more sort of cortisol, the more flight or flight you're in all the time.
Yes. Yes.
So you can't really relax and do things. Now, like the waves, sometimes it's not in our hands, right? Sometimes if you're sailing on a boat, it's not in your hands what happens to the waves.
Yeah.
But if you have a bit of a map and you know that, oh, if I navigate to say north or east or west, that area is typically pretty turbulent. So let me not go there. Let me steer towards the clear waters, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes we have the privilege of knowing this. And that's what a lot of work in therapy is about, right? Recognizing, okay, these situations are good for me. These situations are not so good for me. So I think over time, as you work on yourself, you start recognizing where the turbulent waters are, and you either learn how to navigate through them, because sometimes you can't avoid them, or you just learn to avoid them. So stress is the turbulent waves, and the optimal body mind connection, or I think what's the term you used, optimal
Mind-body connection. Yes.
mind body connection, right,
Yes.
is basically you sailing in your boat with as much ease as you can.
Wow. Wow. That That is a very big perspective shift for me because I think me and many people think that we're always supposed to be doing something. We're in the state of action. We're supposed to get in these many hours of yoga or workout or eat right all the time. But like you said, life is super unpredictable and we don't actually control our external circumstances. So I love the boat analogy that you brought in. It's very, very insightful. Thank you for that.
You're most welcome. And doesn't that sometimes end up being the source of stress that, oh
Yes,
my God, I'm not
100%.
doing these many hours. So
Yes,
that's counterproductive, right? That
yes,
doesn't make sense. It's
yes,
really about what best can I do right now?
yes.
And even that doesn't have to be 100%. If you're above a 60, 70%, you should pat yourself on the back.
Wow.
Being easy is very underrated. Like, I'm not saying don't have discipline,
Yeah,
have a plan, have a structure, have discipline. But if you get stuck to too hard and stuck to discipline,
yeah,
then that itself becomes a source of discomfort and it
true.
becomes counterproductive. So it has to be so easy and discipline together have to go hand in hand, and you have to see what needs to sort of be given what percentage on what day almost, or what
Wow.
phase of your life.
True. I feel like a lot of us get, yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
I said just in my humble
Oh
opinion.
no, I love that. So I feel like a lot of us get stuck in this mindset of all or nothing. Like we have our to-do list and we are not flexible with those to-do lists. Like we've written down everything that we need to get done, these many hours of yoga, this is these many calories is how many I'm gonna eat, how much I'm gonna eat. And then we feel like if we falter on one thing, the entire day or the entire week is wasted. And we go into that vicious cycle of that itself causing us stress. So I love that you highlighted that there because we need to be flexible with our routines, like you'd mentioned. So that's lovely. Now I'd love to flow into our fourth question, which
Can
is
I add one thing? Can
please
I
do,
add one
please
thing?
do, please
Like,
do.
so one thing that's been helpful for me, because I love planning too, and I like having a checklist and
Yeah,
checking things
yeah.
off. But, I think it's nice to have like buckets, like
Okay.
must do, but don't have more than three things in there, right? Like I
Yeah,
must do this. And then
yeah,
sort of in your mind know that even if there may be some days where I only do one, and that's okay. If I get all three, fantastic. But if I get only one or two, that's okay. So even when you're planning, you sort
yeah,
of like bucketize items and say that this is priority one, this is priority two, three, and four. So
yeah.
then if you don't get to three and four, it's okay. You try and do as much of one and two. So essentially, what I'm saying is, even when you're planning, plan with flexibility.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So on a day where I have 5 hours free, I will do 2 hours of yoga. On a day
Yeah,
where I only have 1 hour free, maybe I will not do yoga.
yeah, yeah.
You know?
That's okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's okay, because when you plan with the flexibility, you may think that you'll slack off, but
Yeah.
actually no, you end up feeling better and doing more because you're more realistic.
Wow. So set realistic goals and expectations. Love that.
And give yourself bandwidth to sort
Yeah.
of, take it easy also, depending
Yeah.
upon your mood, your day.
Yeah, because I think most of us, like you'd mentioned, we feel that we are being complacent and we might slack off. So with that fear, we add in too many things, we add too much on our plate, which again becomes counterproductive, and we end up not being productive at all because of again the all or nothing mindset. So flexibility in terms of creating your system and also planning to be okay with not getting everything done. If you get everything done, fantastic. If you don't, it's fine. So that's what I'm gathering here, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Have that leeway. Give yourself some leeway.
Give yourself some leeway. Lovely. Now, I'd love to flow into our fourth question since you're a yoga practitioner. How can yoga help us in terms of how we deal with the stress, be it the stress of planning things, or just we're stressed in general. We're stressed about getting things done. We're stressed if we don't get things done. We're always stressed. So we're creating some stress. So
Yes.
how can we incorporate yoga into our life to help combat, to help battle this stress?
See, yoga, well, first of all, yoga has been coming from years and years and thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
The history behind yoga is that Maharishi Patanjali, he essentially observed, there was all of this knowledge and sadhus and rishis practicing, and then he decided to put it all together, and then he wrote the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which is, I think, 196 Yoga Sutras, of which I believe only two or four talk about the physical asanas. The
Oh,
rest of it is about understanding your mind, about the different states of your mind, how
hmm.
to restrain your senses, the role of breath, right? The role of meditation. So the role of tapas. Tapas is essentially effort, right? Going through pain, the role of pain, how that has a huge purifying effect on our consciousness. So yoga is actually not just some physical postures. That is one aspect of it, but there's actually, we say ashtanga yoga, 8 limbs of yoga. There's 8 limbs of yoga, right? It actually starts with, the first 2 limbs are about mindset. So the first limb is about yamas. It talks about how you should operate with the rest of the world, kindness, truthfulness, moderation, non-stealing, like giving up jealousy, envy, non-hoarding, not hoarding things, too much. So that is the first limb. Then the second limb talks about your inner world, cleanliness of thought, feeling, contentment. It's literally a practice, contentment, tapas, going through effort, going through hardships with the right attitude, self-reflection, and then finally surrendering to a higher power, right? So this makes the second limb. Then comes the asanas, which is your physical postures. Then comes breathing, your breath work. Then the fifth limb is you going inwards, taking the attention inwards. Like in some meditations, you may have heard they'd say focus on your third eye or focus on your heart. So it's like taking the attention inwards. And then come the other states of like concentration, meditation, and finally samadhi. So yoga is actually all of this. But this shouldn't overwhelm you. This is just to let you know that yoga is much more than just physical asanas. Now, practicing yoga is about, well, first you start with the asanas. It it is one of the limbs, right? And they're all interconnected. So for me, when I first started doing yoga, the physical asanas, I was in Chicago at the time, I remember. And in Chicago, we had this Groupon system. Like online, you would get coupons for like a month or whatever. So some yoga studio was doing a Groupon. I took it, and I started going to the classes. And I used to walk back from the studio to my apartment, and it was one of the most insightful times in my life, because as I was walking back, I would just have all of these epiphanies. I would
Wow.
think about like my relationship, about my behavior, about my life, and I realized that the twisting and the turning and the squeezing and the expanding and the bending, all of that, the body stores things, right? The body
Yes.
stores emotions. The body, I mean, this has been scientifically proven
Yes.
too.
Yes.
So there's a lot of release that happens even as you're doing just the physical asanas without you even realizing or consciously trying to do it, just because of the movements, the way they are designed. And so, one is that the physical movements have an impact on your emotional and mental well being, number one, in yoga. Number two, the breath work really helps bring your mind to a state of focus and centeredness. Ultimately, it's all a game of the mind, right? Like
Yes.
wherever, if you do nothing but you're happy, if you're truly happy, not
Yeah.
just like covering it up, right? Then that's all that's needed, right?
Yeah.
What do the sadhus and the rishis on the mountains do? They meditate all day. They're happy. They may not
Yeah.
even eat. They may not even do yoga. They may not do anything, right? For
Yeah.
them, there is no social, there is no mental, emotional, nothing. So it's all a game of the mind. So
Yes.
the breathing really helps you to restrain, to control, to focus your mind. And then the meditation also helps you relax the nervous system. So, and then, of course, if you're practicing yoga fully, then you will also practice the virtues, like what I
Yes.
said in the beginning.
Yes.
And you can just Google it. You can Google Ashtanga Yoga or Maharishi Patanjali Yoga, and you'll get all the yamas, niyamas. The first 2 limbs are yamas and niyamas. So then, as you start reading about it, you sort of like start looking at yourself, and maybe you pick one yama a day. Like for example, in my classes, I'll often end with, okay, today let's try and practice ahimsa, or today let's try and practice santosha, contentment, in our lives, in our daily lives as we go about. So yoga, I feel, hits all the spots, all the levels, right? There's the physical, there's the mental, there's the emotional, and then there's also the spiritual, because you're practicing goodness.
Wow.
So, what was your question?
I was asking, how does yoga help us in terms of dealing with stress from different aspects of our life?
Okay, I think then that's covered, right? Because on the
Yes,
physical
yes,
level, you get detoxified, on the
yes.
mental level, also. So, at all
Please,
levels, there is
yes,
an upliftment.
yes.
There is a cleansing and there's an upliftment.
Yes, thank you for letting us know that yoga is so much more than asanas perfected. And you've given us a lot of insights, especially in terms of telling us that there are 8 limbs to yoga. Then it's so much more than just a few poses that people find on the internet. It's about your breath, it's about your intention, contentment, it's about your principles that you choose to live by. And that's why I find yoga to be so helpful in terms of, like you'd mentioned, release. It just lets us release all these stored up emotions. Our body, like you said, stores up emotions in our muscles, in our joints, in different organs. It is stored up and you feel truly free, and then there is no space for stress, I feel, because your body is just it's our body's natural state is to be happy, and we are constantly conflicting with our natural state by adding on too much to our plate. And I think yoga helps us sit and reflect on it, just let go and reflect on what truly matters to us, and it just naturally de-stresses us. So thank you so much, that was a very beautiful answer. Would you like to add on something?
Yeah, just like you said, when you can sort of let go, only
Yeah.
then can reflection happen, right?
Yes, yes.
Like they feel like, I think there's a Buddhist story or something about the cup, right? The
Yeah,
teacup has to be empty for it to be
yeah,
filled.
filled,
Otherwise, it's
true.
going to overflow. So I
Overflowing,
think
yes.
yoga does that. It helps you sort of empty out the cup a bit so you can
Yes,
see what you're putting.
beautiful,
I
beautifully
like
put.
that you.
That's a very beautiful analogy. Now, I'd like to flow into the fifth question, which is give us a practical beginner's guide to getting started with yoga. Now, I am, let's say, anybody listening to this, they really want to get started with yoga. They want to get started with the asanas. They just want to dabble there for a bit before moving into the more, the complicated parts of it. But I would say if they want to, we can flow into the other parts of it. But about the asanas, what would be your beginner friendly guide for somebody wanting to start today?
This is a bit of a hard one because
Okay.
I would love to sort of just say these poses or
Yeah.
this link, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I don't feel comfortable saying that because I feel like a teacher is the best way to learn to begin with. So if you really want to learn yoga, I would say, or practice yoga, learning is I would say practice yoga because
Practice.
learning yoga is not, yeah, practicing because we all have it, it's just about flowing, understanding, breathing. So if you want to practice yoga, start under a teacher. So look up classes around you, look up some teacher that you can learn under, because I think it's important to learn it the right way, right?
Yes.
Um, because there is a chance, it is a physical, if you're going to look at asanas, it is a physical practice, right? And if you end up doing it wrong over and over again, you could hurt yourself like anything else, right? Even if you go to the gym, there's a way to pick up, to deadlift, there's a way to do it all, right? Otherwise you
Yes.
can end up hurting your back. So I would say, go to a teacher. Go to a teacher, find a class close to you, go for a few months, and then you can sort of understand, okay, these are the poses that work for me. The teacher can also help you in assessing. So, for example, if you're going through a heartbreak, right? You might need more heart opening asanas. Or if you have hypertension, you might need more of the forward folding. So, depending upon what you are going through, you can customize and plan your yoga journey. And that only a teacher can do for you, right? So, I feel like finding a class and a teacher is the best way to get started. But say you're all fit and healthy and fine and there's no issues, and you have maybe somewhere in the past learned Surya Namaskars, then that is a really good way to sort of like awaken and energize and work most of your muscle groups and organs. And also, Surya Namaskar, it's not just about paying respect to to sun, but it's also about activating your own solar plexus, which is like the sun outside and the sun inside, right? So, and the sun inside, the solar plexus is what is about confidence, about joy, about experiencing life, right? So I feel like Surya Namaskar is one practice. If you have already learned from your teacher or somebody, and you're fit and healthy, no knee issues, no back issues, I feel like doing 12 Surya Namaskars every day is a fantastic way to get started. And then you can incorporate some of the basic poses as well, like there's warrior one, warrior two, warrior three, tree pose. There's a few basic poses that you can sort of like look up even, but only once you've known. So if in the past you've had instruction, go for it with 12 Surya Namaskars, and maybe you can do 5 to 10 other poses sitting or standing. There's the triangle pose, there's the forward fold. There are a few poses you can do once you know the alignment and the posture. But if you've never done yoga, then best to go and start with a teacher or a class close by.
Okay, that was a lovely answer because, like you'd mentioned, so many people are in different parts or different phases of their life, and they do need yoga to be tailor-made for them for the particular phase that they're in. I think that's a point that virtually nobody highlights because they just say, yeah, go look up classes online and just start doing something. No, it doesn't really help release the pent-up emotion. And also, like you said, there's the risk of injury, and that is
Yes.
a very real risk. And the Surya Namaskar, I find that to be amazing advice because the solar plexus, that's something that we need to activate. We need to be in our we need to be the most confident self of or the most confident version of ourselves because we can't really pour out of an empty cup, and if we're not confident in ourselves, there's nothing left for us to give to the people around us, and we cannot contribute to the society as a whole, which is what I believe. So that was a beautifully put answer. Now, I'd like to ask you, since you're also a sound healer, what exactly does the term sound healing mean and why is it important for us?
So sound healing, like the two words say, it is basically using sound to bring about a healing effect on your mind body complex. So, healing is essentially anything that again allows you to release, allows you to bring more harmony and restore balance. So, using sound to do that is essentially sound healing. Now, the kind of sound healing I do, I use the Tibetan bowls, the singing bowls,
Okay.
but there are many types of sound healings. For example, there's the gong healing people do. That's a little bit more of a masculine sound, but there's the gong. Even singing, right? The ragas from back in the day, from, olden times, the ragas were healing. There were specific ragas for certain times and even conditions that could help you sort of come out of certain health conditions, even. So, anything where we use the power of sound, whether it's through your vocal cords or through an instrument, to bring about a healing effect. So the
Okay.
sound has to be the sound. This here the quality of the sound is important, right? If I just take a drum and just randomly start, playing the drum, that's not sound healing. That is
Yeah.
sound unhealing or
Noise.
dishealing, whatever, right? Yes. So the quality of the sound matters, and
Correct.
like I said, the Tibetan bowls or the singing bowls, we call them, the sacred singing bowls that we use are their frequencies, they're handmade or even machine made. Their frequencies are designed in such a way that they have a very healing effect on the nervous system, calming the body down, calming the mind down, and allowing healing to self healing, honestly, to happen on its own by just allowing relaxation, by bringing about relaxation.
Wow, that was a very beautifully put answer. Now, as much as I would love to ask you more, Zoom does not allow us more than 40 minutes of a free meeting. So we have around eight
Oh, is
minutes
that
left
true?
now. Yes,
Okay,
so
okay.
we have
It'll
eight
be
minutes.
fast.
Yes, so I would just want to wrap this up with the most important last closing question that I have. So, what, according to you, is living well? Living well, a life
According to
potential. Yeah,
Yeah, according to me, living well is you feeling that you are doing the best you can comfortably with your resources.
wow,
That is what to me living well is. For example, I have my best friend, right? She has a lot of physical ailments. She has a complex PTSD as well. So a lot of
sorry.
times, like she's just in a lot of pain, and there's not much she can do. All she can do is sort of just sometimes distract herself, watch something, or spend a little bit of time with her nephew or niece, or laugh about something with me. And that's the best sometimes all she can, like, that she can do in a day. She can't do much more. So for her, if she's able to do that, that is living well, right? She
Yeah,
may not have the same abilities or resources as me or
yeah,
you or somebody else.
yeah,
So I feel like living well is very subjective and personal,
yes.
and you got to see what is available to you, what your resources are, and if you feel that you are doing the best within that, then that is living well.
Beautiful. Wow. That was so eloquently put. I am so thankful to be able to grasp all of your insights that you've gained from so many years of living and practicing everything that you had mentioned. Thank you once again for taking out the time to make this happen. I'm really, really so grounded and so humble that you took out the time and sat here with us to provide us with all of your insights. I'm sure this is really gonna shift the perspective of so many people. It has for me personally, and I'm so thankful for that. Thank you.
I'm
And
glad.
yes, and that's a wrap, guys. Thank you again, Tavishi. It was lovely, lovely speaking to you. I hope you and everybody who's listening has an amazing day ahead, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Until then, bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.